Hello everyone, this is your friend from Naruto Audio Fanfics, and we are back once again with a brand new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto was banished for his sarcasm and formed a 10-girl harem with Anko Mitarashi, Tsunade, Mei Terumi, Konan, Samui, Mabui, Yugito ni, Shizune, Kuratsuchi and Karui, Part 2. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit the like button, thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing Naruto fanfics like this. So without wasting any more time, let's start today's fanfic. Team 8 was currently standing in much larger field than the previous one. Kurenai was facing the team, who were all in a row. Alright, I'm going to give each of you separate training. Shino, Hinata, has each of your clans given you something to learn recently? They both nodded and each pulled out a scroll from inside their jackets. Father has given me the instructions for 8 trigrams, 64 palms. And I have been given parasitic insects, typhoon. The Jonin nodded and turned to Naruto. Good, what about you, Naruto? She asked. Naruto pulled one blue and one yellow scroll. I'm currently working on water style, shark bomb and lightning style, fangs of lightning with the use of my claws, he replied, causing Kurenai to raise an eyebrow. You're already on A-ranked jutsus? She questioned as she was unaware of how advanced the wind jutsu he performed against Zabuza was. Zabuza? That was something she needed to discuss tonight. Naruto nodded. Yep. My affinities are wind, water, and lightning. In case you're wondering, I got the scrolls from my family's estate. The genjutsu mistress's eyes widened at that. She worriedly glanced over at the other two. They both nodded and gave a look that said, we know everything. She sighed once more. You could never predict or understand Naruto, not even the new him. Very well then, for today I want you to practice those jutsus and tomorrow I'll teach you one of my genjutsus. Understand? Nods. Good. I'll be standing by to correct you on your forms and give you basic tips, she said as she walked to a nearby stump and sat down. Time skip. 1 week. Over the course of the week, Team 8 have been training non-stop. Why, you ask? It's because a week ago Kurenai had informed the Leaf Ninja that Zabuza Momochi, the Jonin Team 8 fought, was still alive to everyone's shock save for her, Kakashi, and Hinata. She told them that Hunter Nin always disposed the body by burning it at the spot to destroy any type of information from enemy villages, they don't carry it away. Kakashi also added that Senbon were also used to put others in a false state of death should it pierce the correct spot. Hunter Nin rarely used Senbon, and if they did they would have explosive tags attached to aid in the disposal. Hinata also said that she sensed 2 fairly high chakra signatures hidden in the bushes during the battle. She knew the hunter was one of them but brushed it off, thinking it was just her and her partner waiting for the missing Nin to weaken. However, Kakashi said that Hunter Nin always travel separately to cover more ground. This could only mean one thing, that Hunter Nin was one of Zabuza's accomplices, and there was most likely someone else, and judging by the wounds that were inflicted should take about a week to fully heal. This of course terrified Sakura and Sasuke, though the latter didn't show it. Sasuke demanded to know how the fight went, and once he was told he up and right refused to believe a dead last like Naruto could even stand a chance to someone like Zabuza. Sakura of course was in full agreement, saying that they all just made it up to make Naruto look cool. Oh, how everyone present wanted to smack the bitch around. Speaking of Team 7, Kiba was by far Kakashi's favorite student. While he was still a little headstrong, he was attentive and was always willing to learn. He managed to master tree climbing after the second day and was working on a modified version of his Fang over Fang. While Sakura struggled with tree climbing, she immediately mastered it after Kakashi re-explained the method. This of course infuriated Sasuke, and he flat out insulted her by saying she only got it down because she had so little chakra. That did bring her down a bit. She was just trying to impress him. She instantly shook it off, thinking he was just tired and frustrated. Kakashi was really getting sick of how damn delusional she was. She thinks she doesn't have to be a ninja because Sasuke will always save her, white in shining armor. The same person who has never even looked in her direction in her, or any other girl for that matter, it makes some people wonder. Kakashi tried constantly to explain the reality of what was going on, but she always ignored him. Sasuke was able to get the exercise down after 3 days but kept demanding that he be trained in advanced techniques. The village really did screw up these two by filling their heads with lie after lie. Team 8 was curious as to why the Cyclops shinobi was putting up with their shit. Once this mission was over, they need to get the answers out of him one way or another. Team 8 was doing far better. Hinata was already up to 128 palms of her 8 trigrams style, and Shino improved his stealth and 2 other clan jutsus. Naruto was only able to use his fangs of lightning up to about a 200 meters radius before it stopped being effective, though the shark bomb was perfected. Kurenai also trained them all in tracking and stealth, as this was key should they end up facing Zabuza and his comrades. The only advantages they had was strength in numbers, so the element of surprise could be their ace in the hole. They all spent most of their non-training time avoiding the Brooder as well as his fangirl, and spending time with Kiba. It was around 7:30 and the sun was just about to set. Naruto was currently lying on the forest floor near the house. He needed a bit of time to himself after he almost snapped. I can't believe that little bastard. He actually had the gall to say that not only a ninja's life was easy, but that we didn't know what it was like to suffer. It took every bit of self-control that Kasumi Nissen, won, and Kyuubi taught me to not break that little neck. He thought. Hell, even Kyuubi was telling him to reach out and smack Inari up something fierce. Thank Kami he learned how to cut off that damn mental link. During dinner time with everyone, Inari came out of nowhere and asked why they were doing this. Naruto calmly explained that they were hired to and felt it was right to help protect Tazuna. Almost immediately following that sentence, Inari yelled at him and said they didn't know what it was like to go through pain, to suffer. As soon as he said that, Naruto's team and Kakashi snapped their heads in Naruto's direction. To their shock, he kept calm and coolly stated that it would be best if he understood something before he opened his mouth, which made the whiny bitch run to his room crying. He quietly excused himself, and here he was. His inner ranting was halted when he heard footsteps. He turned his head to see his sensei walking towards him. "Hey Naruto, can I talk to you?" she said in a calm, almost motherly tone. "Sure sensei," he replied as Kurenai sat down on the ground. "Look Naruto, I just want to tell you we're all proud of you the way you handle it." Naruto gave a small smile. "Thanks. I suppose it isn't entirely the kid's fault. He has probably been sheltered his whole life and thinks he deserves all the pity in the world. I'm just a little pissed that Tazuna-san and Tsunami let him talk like that," he said. "If he was Tsunami, he would have slapped that child and told him to grow up years ago." Kurenai nodded. "Same here. If it makes you feel any better, me and Kakashi had to hold Hinata and Shino back after you left," she said as she literally had to restrain Hinata from going into the kid's room and giving her a piece of her mind. Naruto chuckled at that. "Well, hopefully they don't end up scarring him too much. I also came here to tell you to take tomorrow morning off. You have been training the most out of everyone." Albeit reluctantly, Naruto agreed. "Thanks sensei," he said as he saw Kurani get up and walk back towards the house. He closed his eyes and tried to relax but was interrupted when he heard yet another set of footsteps approach. He opened his eyes and gazed over at the sound to see a young girl, roughly his age, walk toward him. She had long black hair that reached her shoulders and a figure that made Kyuubi cat call inside the blonde's head, much to his ire. She was wearing a pink dress and was holding a basket filled with an assortment of herbs. "You know you shouldn't be out here so late. You could catch a cold," she said in a gentle voice that was all too familiar to him. Naruto sat up and looked at her. "Thanks for your concern, but I'm about to leave," he said as he looked over at the girl's basket's contents. "Herbs, huh? Do you study medicine?" he asked as he could have sworn he saw a faint pink blush adorn her cheeks. Was her eyes lowered to his abs? "Nah." She smiled and knelt down beside him. "Yes, actually, I'm no medic, but I'm doing fairly well." These are for someone precious to me who is heavily injured. Naruto looked a little confused at the term she used. Precious. You know, someone you truly care about and would do anything for them. Friends, family, loved ones. Naruto contemplated that. Precious. Kasumi, Iruka-sensei, Kurenai-sensei, Hinata, Shino, Kiba, Shikamaru, Sarutobi, Tsuki, Ayame, and Konohamaru came across his mind. He must have been thinking for quite some time as he was brought out of his thoughts by the girl thanks to her placing a hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry, what did you say? He questioned as his gaze returned to the girl. I asked if you were a shinobi. She repeated while pointing at his headband. I am. I've been training for almost a week straight. You seem pretty strong to me. She pointed out. Well, as someone close to me said, you can only get stronger. He said as he remembered Kasumi using those exact words countless times. Why do you fight? The black-haired girl asked. Naruto blinked. That was out of the blue. What? Why do you fight? For money. Fame. To protect somebody. Naruto gave a light chuckle. I've been wondering about that myself. It used to be to gain the respect of my village, but that's changed. The girl could sense a small amount of venom in his voice and didn't peruse the matter. Well, if I was a ninja, I would protect the ones precious to me. To me, that is the only way to become truly strong. I care about them more than myself, and that would push me to greater lengths. With them, I could overcome anything. Naruto sat there stunned. It was starting to make sense to him now. Why did he punch Sasuke a week ago? To defend Hinata's honor, to protect her. Why did he stand up for Shino when he was being picked on back in the academy? To protect him because he related to being an outcast to most people. He always felt a little bit stronger when he was fighting for others instead of himself. While he was thinking about the new window to a new philosophy, the young girl glanced at the now fully set sun. It's getting late, I should be going. I hope you think about what I said. My name is Haku, by the way. Okay, see ya. I'm Naruto. Good night, Haku. She smiled. Good night, Naruto. She replied while leaving the forest, mentally berating herself for coming here alone and without her Senbon. Once she was out of sight, Naruto stood up and walked back to the bridge builder's home, all the while reflecting on Haku's words. But then an ever-growing thought crossed his mind. Kyuubi, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Unfortunately, yes, that was definitely the hunter. She didn't bother changing her voice and their scents are identical. Damn, she seemed nice. I just hope we don't have to face off in battle. Me too, Kit, me too. Naruto cut off the link and opened the door. He walked in and slowly made his way to his room. He closed the door and lied down on the mat, closing his eyes. His last conscious thought before drifting off to sleep was, well, at least I might have found my new goal. Are you sure he'll show up, sensei? Shino asked with Kurenai nodding. Yes, the bridge should be done by today and Zabuza is most likely recovered. This is his last chance before he fails his mission. Team 8 was standing outside of Tazuna's house making last-minute preparations before they set off to the bridge. Kurenai was sure Zabuza and his accomplices would show up to kill Tazuna, his workers, and destroy the bridge. If they didn't, then the bridge will be finished and Wave Country will flourish. Do you think we should bring Naru-kun with us? We should get all the backup we can. Hinata questioned. It wasn't that she wanted to bring her crush along, it was because she knew full well he was the most powerful out of all the genin present and he might be the difference between life and death. The Genjutsu mistress shook her head. No, Naruto has been training hard and needs to rest up, otherwise he won't be in the best of shape and could be a burden. Besides, I have complete faith in the both of you, she said, making the two smile. They soon heard a rather annoying voice from behind. Besides, we don't need that baka. Not when we have Sasuke-kun. They mentally groaned and turned around to see Team 7 and Tazuna. Well, that baka kicked your precious Sasuke-kun's on several occasions. Kiba said. This of course caused Sakura to hit him on top of the head and Sasuke to glare. Kakashi of course was completely ignoring them with his nose deep in his Finally. We've been out here for almost half an hour. Kurenai stated, clearly annoyed. Sorry, but Sakura was too busy getting her hair done. Kakashi said as if it was no big deal. This of course caused all of Team 8 to gain a tick mark on their foreheads. We're on an A- ranked mission and all you care about is your looks. Kurenai said as calmly as she could, but Sakura merely shrugged. What? I can be a kunoichi and care about my appearance too. She defended. Finding no use in arguing with someone as block-headed as her, the female Jonin massaged her temples and tried to go back to her usual demeanor, with the key word being tried. Alright, fine. Let's just get moving. She ordered, with everyone nodding except for Sasuke, who merely, ed. Kurenai was in disbelief at the two's lack of respect, and Kakashi was acting as if everything was alright. As soon as this mission is over I will get my answers, even if I have to beat it out of you, Kakashi. She thought as they starting to walk to their destination. The one thing that bothered her was the Sasuke had a strange mark on the back of his neck but didn't dwell on it. She'll ask later. Some time later, the two teams had arrived to see most of the construction workers dead. Some decapitated, disemboweled, or nothing but bloodstains on the ground. While this was normal for the shinobi, Tazuna was about to heave and Sakura actually fainted at the sight and smell. Everyone gained a huge sweat drop. You have got to be kidding me. Wheelshi is probably more useful now, I suppose. They all thought, even Tazuna. The rest heard a pained moan a few feet away and saw a rather muscular man covered in ice and bond crawl toward them. Help. Demon. Was all he said before he collapsed and lost consciousness. Kakashi inspected the man and sighed a sigh of relief. Don't worry, he's only been hit in non-vital spots. He should be okay in a few days. Aside from the brooder, everyone smiled. The smiles quickly twisted when they saw a thick fog roll in. I'm a little hurt. Instead of sending Anbu or Jonin, they send a few more brats and Kakashi, the copy ninja. One of them actually passed out just from the sight and scent. Pathetic. Being arrogant and having poor excuses of ninja isn't a good combination for Konoha. An all too familiar voice said. Copy ninja. All the genin thought. Hee, it seems that blonde brat isn't here. What a shame. I wanted a rematch. This will be over in no time. Haku take the genin and I'll take the jonin. Akai. Well, no one seems worth your time, so just get comfy and enjoy the show. The missing nin ordered while releasing more and more ki with every word. Look, the one with the duck hair is trembling. Zabuza mocked. Everyone locked their gaze on Sasuke, who was shaking like a leaf. Trying to keep his cool demeanor, he smirked. I'm trembling. He trailed off before disappearing and reappearing in blur. With excitement, he finished before 4 separate splashes of water were heard. Zabuza chuckled and said, not bad, kid, but if I recall, I sent 5 clones. Sasuke's eyes widened before a clone appeared behind him and swung the blunt end of his zanbeitu, sending him flying 20 feet forward. He finally landed on his stomach and tried to get back up but felt pressure on his back. He looked up and saw a girl in hunter nin gear. The brooder was really lucky he didn't see the smirk behind her mask, because it pretty much said, "You're my bitch now." Back at Tazuna's home, Naruto was still sleeping peacefully in his room. Kyuubi, however, was wide awake and bored, so he decided to play a little prank of his own. He began to insert a few things into Naruto's dream, and sure enough, a few moments later Naruto began to blush heavily and stir a bit. Hina-chan, what are you doing? Wait. Put your clothes back on. Hey, that's my. He mumbled as he covered his crotch. Hina-chan. Stop. We're only I need an adult. I need an adult. Naruto opened his eyes and sat up. He almost yelled. The blonde could hear laughing inside his head and growled. Kyuubi, what the hell? Haha. Oh, don't act all innocent. The first no, you enjoyed that. I did not. Your pants say otherwise. The fox said as Naruto looked down and saw the large bulge. Shut up, you. Naruto was cut off by a scream coming from outside. Shit. That sounds like tsunami. Naruto said as he quickly stood up, grabbed a scroll, and ran out of his room. Outside, Naruto snuck outside and looked around and managed to hear talking near the pier. He peered around a corner of the house to see Tsunami tied up and two thugs holding Inari via shoulders in front of her. Don't you dare lay a hand on him. Just take me and leave him alone. Tsunami cried at the men with tears in her eyes. One of the thugs smirked. I don't think you're in any position to order us around. Gato said to bring the both of you to the bridge. You know, a little collateral. He said. To Naruto's surprise, Inari wasn't crying or even showing the slightest hint of fear. He was just letting himself be held and looked like he knew he was going to die but wanted to die honorably. Deciding to act now, Naruto opened the scroll and pulled out his claws. He saw one of the guards lick his lips. Though I don't suppose we can't have some fu-ah. Before the thug finished, his arm holding Inari left his body. He fell to his knees and clutched the now spurting wound. The other man let go of Inari and pulled out a katana and looked around but was soon impaled through the neck and tossed unceremoniously into the water. Tsunami and Inari looked to see Naruto covered in blood and a sincere expression on his face. Sorry you two had to see that. He apologized as he walked toward the bridge builder's daughter and cut her loose. He was then glomped by her and her son. The blonde managed to push them off and asked, "Where is everybody?" They all left for the bridge. Tsunami answered, making Naruto's eyes widened. Shit. Zabuza's probably healed up by now. Listen, I don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to say that I'm proud of you, Inari, for being brave. My sensei informed me about what happened to you, father, and I want you to know that he was one of the most courageous men I've ever heard of. Don't lose your faith. Heroes do exist. I want you to be brave and protect your mother in case someone else comes back. Got it? Inari nodded. Good. I'll be back and I promise you Tazuna will get out of this alive. He finished and quickly shunshined to the bridge, leaving a smiling Inari. He hasn't smiled in ages. At the bridge, Naruto reappeared about a quarter mile away from the bridge but saw that it was almost completely covered in mist. He poured a small amount of chakra into his eyes and was able to view everything much sharper than usual. I love these enhanced sense. Let's see. Kakashi-sensei has his Sharingan out and is fighting Zabuza with Kurenai-sensei providing support. Hina-chan is protecting Tazuna. Sakura is passed out and still completely useless, and the rest are fighting Haku. I've never seen the other guy before. Looks like he's carrying a Zanbeitu and an Okatana. I need to think this through. With Akai. Akai was standing around with his arms crossed and brooding inside his head. Man, this is boring. Did they have to leave the blonde guy behind? He was holding his own against Zabuza and he might have been a worthy challenge. Akai was too busy complaining that he didn't see Naruto rise out of the ground behind him as if he was emerging from water. Naruto raised one of his claws and brought it down diagonal-wise on Akai's head. Akai gasped and clutched his head. He didn't have much time to contemplate what was going on as he felt a sharp pain in his stomach and was sent a few feet backwards. He managed to get up and saw the said blonde guy with his foot out in front of him and holding some sick-looking claws. Damn Genjutsu, I need to be careful. There's no telling how much Kurenai has taught him, he thought. Naruto managed to get a good look at this guy. He had dark red, nearly crimson blood hair and dark green eyes. He had a scar over his right eye similar to Kakashi's, but the eye was still there. He was wearing jet black cargo pants and a blood-red t-shirt with a shark tooth necklace hanging from his neck and standard shinobi sandals. Naruto saw he also had on a long sleeveless red coat on and couldn't help but think of his father. He also noticed a large Zanbeitu strapped to his back and an Okatana strapped to his right thigh. He saw the guy bring out his Zanbeitu and charge at him. Naruto was able to block the vertical strike with his claws. He pushed him off and lunged forward. The real battle had begun. Naruto dodged another swing from the now grinning swordsman. He tried to go for a swipe but the red-haired teen raised his Zanbeitu and blocked it. Naruto pushed off and was able to get a little bit of distance between him and his opponent by jumping back so he could catch his breath and plan out his next move. Okay. Kenjutsu is definitely out. Let's see. I'll try to pick him off with a few ninjutsus and trap him in a genjutsu when he lowers his guard. Man, that smile is starting to creep me out, the Namikaze thought. While said smile was not that of a bloodthirsty killer, it still made him seem like he was off. Whoever he was obviously enjoying himself. Before the blonde could initiation his plan, the older boy chuckled and said, "You're good kid, what's your name?" "Mine is Akai Kendo. Naruto Uzumaki," he replied. Akai's grin dropped for a moment while he thought. Uzumaki, huh? I need to be careful. He seems to be able to perform ninjutsu without hand signs and/or calling out the name. Not to mention the Uzumaki specialize in kenjutsu and sealing. Wait, didn't that scroll I found have an Uzumaki on it? I think it was Kushina, but maybe, shit. The red-haired apprentice cursed out loud as he was knocked on his thanks to a small, but powerful, gust of wind that blew straight at him and dissipated some of the mist. Alright, less inner monologue, more fighting, Akai thought as he rose and went through a set of hand signs before calling out. Water style. Water dragon jutsu. To the blonde's shock, instead of water rising up from the sea below, a fully formed water dragon launched itself at him. Seemingly out of nowhere. Wanting to question that later, Naruto said, "Water style. Wild vortex jutsu." The dragon then leaned to left and completely missed Naruto. Instead of continuing onward like Akai expected, the dragon turned around and started to swirl around him. What the hell? It looked like the dragon just appeared out of nowhere. I haven't seen such a high affinity since, Kit Focus. Kyuubi yelled in his head. Mentally nodding, Naruto then made an unfamiliar hand sign and as if on cue, the dragon stopped surrounding him and charged at its own creator and hit him dead on. With Haku and the others, Shino, Kiba, and Sasuke were currently surrounded by what seemed to be a dome of ice mirrors. Shino was still standing with a few of his bugs swarming around him, as was Kiba and the now transformed Akamaru, though they were clearly fatigued. Sasuke, however, was down on one knee and glaring holes at the image of Haku inside the mirrors. All of them had at least 2 or 3 ice needles in their arms and legs. "I'll give you one last chance, surrender yourselves and let us kill the old man. I do not want it to end it this way," the ice user said. She of course was not going to be the one to kill the bridge builder, but with them out of the way she could help Akai or Zabuza with their fights. "I'm sorry Hunter-san, but we were ordered to protect Tazuna-san at all cost," Shino said. He could hear a small sigh and saw the images of Haku take out a few Senbon. "Then I have no choice," she grimly stated. In the blink of an eye, Haku traveled around the dome of mirrors in various blurs and Shino collapsed seconds later. He had numerous Senbon piercing his torso and neck, though one was unsure if they were vital or not. "Aw man, we are so screwed," Kiba thought. Indeed they were screwed. They couldn't hit her because she moved too damn fast and would always end in pain for them. They couldn't break the mirrors because they seemed to be nearly indestructible and the one that did break just reformed. They couldn't even escape because, as previously stated, she was too damn fast. "She's just toying with us. She could have killed us in less than a second, but she keeps sparing us. What is she trying to do?" 1-inch Kiba was so wrapped up in this that he didn't notice Senbon pierce the back of his neck. He instantly collapsed as he began to lose consciousness. The only thing in his line of sight was Sasuke, but he soon fell thanks to a hail of needles. But as soon as he hit the ground he went up in a poof of smoke to reveal someone else. Akamaru, was all the Inuzuka could mutter as darkness enveloped him. With Naruto and Akai. While all this was going on, the dragon struck Akai and burst into water on impact. Naruto glanced around to see the teenager, but to no avail. No more than a second later he felt a cold metal against his neck. Mizu Bunshin, he thought as he turned his head slightly to see a still grinning Akai holding his okatana against his neck. "Phew, you're good, but as they say, all good things must come to an end." Boom. Before the blood-red-haired boy could finish his sentence, Naruto went up in a small explosion that sent him flying backwards. Akai was still able to get up but much slower than usual and was panting heavily. He was covered in burn marks and some of his clothing was ripped from either the heat of the clone's self-destruct or the sheer force of it. Every time I open my mouth I get interrupted and knocked off I'm starting to hate this little asshole. He growled in his head. The older boy managed to regain his senses after a moment but was horrified to see two things in front of him. They were two people crucified to wood, both bleeding from their eyes, noses, and mouths. One was male and the other was female and they both had red hair. Their whole bodies looked beaten and nearly all of their clothes were drenched in blood. Aa Akai-kun, GGG et out of H here. The female stuttered at him as more blood poured her mouth and onto her torn clothes. This was so gruesome and yet Akai could not look away. K-ka-san. TT2-san. He questioned in almost a whisper. SS-on get out of here, T the MI. Mizukage's men will find you. His father weakly ordered. No, I'm not going to leave you two again. Akai yelled as he ran as fast as he could at them. But as soon as he was within arm's reach the two vanished into thin air. Seeing as he failed to save them once again, Akai fell on his hands and knees and silently cried. Meanwhile Naruto observed whole scene with a solemn expression. He couldn't help but feel a small form of sympathy. Seeing the two you care about the most be butchered in front of you is something you can't just shake off, and despite everything Naruto has been through he still couldn't even think about that happening to him. So this is what Sensei warned us about the hell viewing technique. I'm afraid so Kit, but he is still an enemy and must be dealt with accordingly. Kyuubi reminded the blonde. He wasn't that big on kicking a man when he was down, but this was the perfect opportunity to deliver a killing blow. Naruto nodded while drawing his claws and was about to charge at him, but he saw Akai life up his head. You bastard, he said with tear-stained eyes. Then without warning, released a huge amount of Ki that even made Zabuza flinch during his fight. Oh boy, I've only felt Akai this pissed before once and it wasn't pretty. I don't envy the brat right now. The missing nin thought. Haku also felt the ki and worriedly thought. Ni-san. I'll kill you. The apprentice screamed as he drew his okatana and ran full speed at him. Naruto barely had enough time to block the blow but still struggled under the power behind it. Akai began to swing with a decent amount of precision and Naruto was having a lot of trouble keeping up with the dodging and was even starting to receive a few cuts. Not good, not good, not good. Got to end this as soon as possible, he thought, as he jumped away from the swordsman who was now just swinging wildly in hopes of hitting something. The Namikaze went through a flurry of hand seals before thinking. Wind style. Wind prison jutsu. Air was starting to swirl around Akai and was beginning to pick up speed. Within a few moments the crimson-haired teen was encircled in large dome of constantly moving wind. Even after all that Akai continued to swing in and at the dome. He didn't care what was going on, he was seeing red. Gradually the swordsman began to slow down and was starting to look a little drowsy. Shit, it's draining my air supply. Akai mentally cursed as he began to calm down and noticed the dome was actually sucking air from inside and projecting it outward. Akai's knees started to buckle and finally collapsed onto the concrete floor. Once Naruto knew he was out, he released the jutsu and started catching his breath. Alright, we still need to take out Mr. No Brows and Haku. Kit, all those jutsu drained some of your chakra and caused a lot of strain. Take a breather, I'm sure the others are doing fine. No can do Kyuubi, I have complete faith in Sensei, but I'm not sure the others can hold their own against Haku. Besides, I think I have an idea. Damn it, Kit, I swear to. Naruto cut off the mental link before the demon lord could finish his threat and sprinted toward the dome of ice. You're just as stubborn as your mother. Kyuubi thought as he recalled how headstrong and reckless his previous container could be. Naruto finally managed to reach his destination and halted just outside the dome. He pulled out one of his claws and charged it with wind chakra. He gave one of the mirrors a good slash and saw that it barely put a scratch on it. While these things are tough, I don't think I have anything in my arsenal to break on of these that doesn't involve using Kyuubi's chakra. I don't want to use it out in the open like this. I guess there is only one solution. The Jinchuriki ran into the dome to see Sasuke resembling a porcupine and everyone else on the ground. Dobi, what are you doing here? The Uchiha angrily demanded. I'm here to help, now shut up and listen. He responded, but Sasuke merely snarled. I don't need your help, you clan-less freak. I'm an Uchiha and I've got everything handled. Then what about them? Naruto asked while pointing at the downed clan heirs. Sasuke smirked and said, I made a little bit of use out of those 3 lower-class scum. The blonde's eyes narrowed dangerously. So you used them as human shields to protect yourself? The emo's smirk grew even more. Of course, they should be honored to sacrifice themselves for me. In a split second, Naruto cleared the gap and drove his fist right into the spoiled brat's nose, breaking it on impact and rendering him unconscious. I think I've heard enough, he said to himself as he glanced around to see the Hakus in the mirrors. I didn't come here to fight Haku, I came here to offer you a deal. While Haku was surprised that he knew who she was, she kept it hidden under a stoic expression. What kind of deal? I'm offering for you, Akai, and Zabuza to come back to Konoha with us. Before you start denying, let me explain. I'm very close with the Sandaime and he owes me after all I've been through. Plus you and Akai are not registered shinobi, so you cannot be classified as missing nin. I can work out a deal with the Hokage. You also seem to have a bloodline and Konoha practically worships bloodline users. I'm part of a clan and I will guarantee protection from anyone who wishes to adopt you into a clan or use you as a breeder. Quote, why do you want to help us? We are the enemy, Haku asked, extremely confused at his generosity. Naruto sighed and said, I can't stand by and let this continue. I see a lot of me in you and Akai. We have all gone through unimaginable pain and suffering, and I can see the 3 of you hate being on the run. You can be safe at my village. The ice user was still a bit confused, but this was her chance to end the constant danger of lowering her guard. How can I trust you? She asked. He sighed once more. I really can't. That is my offer. The Leaf Nin stated. Haku took a good look at Naruto and gazed into his eyes and saw no sign of deceit. She thought long and hard about this before speaking. All right, if you can convince Zabuza-sama and Akai, then I will go with you. The Uzumaki smiled and nodded. Deal. Now come on, we need to stop the fight before someone ends up dead, he said while running toward the Jonin fight. Haku cancelled the jutsu and took off after him. With the Jonin, can you see the future? Zabuza asked with Kakashi's summons still biting down on him. Yes, and you future is death, Kakashi stated in a deadly serious tone. He went through a complex set of hand signs and lowered one of his arms. Lighting began to cackle and appear in his hand, and soon the sound of chirping birds were heard. Kakashi's prized jutsu was almost complete until a hand grabbed his arm. Kakashi-sensei, stop. The one-eyed ninja turned his head and narrowed his eyes. Naruto, what is the meaning of this? Wait, I think I can make this beneficial for all of us, just give me a chance. If I fail, then I promise I'll allow you to kill no brows over there, he said as the missing nin growled at the nickname. Kakashi glanced over at Kurenai, who nodded and gave a heavy sigh. Very well then, but if you fail, then I kill him and you will face the consequences when we get back, he said as he cancelled the jutsu after Naruto nodded and let go. The blonde walked up to the still-trapped Zabuza with Haku close behind. Zabuza, I have an offer for you and your apprentices. If you surrender, then I can guarantee you citizenship to Konoha. Zabuza spat angrily. You think I'm just going to abandon my mission to live with a bunch of arrogant pricks? Naruto shook his head. Not everyone there is like that, just the civilians and a few shinobi. Don't worry, they're weak and can't do much to you. I will give you protection under my clan to prevent the civilian council from taking advantage of Haku and Akai. I know full well you're tired of being on the run, having to look over your shoulder to avoid capture. If you agree, then you will be safe and maybe even respected due to your swordsman status. Yeah, well, how do I know this isn't some kind of trap? He is telling the truth, Zabuza-sama. I sense no trace of trickery in him. This can be our only chance, Zabuza-sama, please. Haku begged. The Zanbetu wielder sighed and thought about why, but he was still on the fence. Before the man could reply, he heard a somewhat dark chuckle off in the distance. You're kidding me. The demon of the mist and his two lackeys were taken out by a bunch of brats. Everyone conscious gazed at the direction of the voice to see a short and chubby man holding a cane and standing behind a small army of thugs. He looked aged and was wearing a business suit. Gato, what the hell are you doing here? Zabuza questioned. Well, you see, I was never planning on paying you in the first place. Shinobi are much more expensive than good old thugs. Men, kill all the men and take the women. I'm sure some of the staff would love a nice. He said with all the thugs cheering and licking their lips. The mere thought of Haku or Hinata being used as slaves made the three Jonins in Naruto's blood boil. They were all still rearing to go. Hey Gaki, how about a contest? If I kill more thugs than you let me go and I get to kill Gato. If you win, then you can kill Gato and I come with you, no questions asked. You're on, he said before they all gave a war cry and charged at the army. It was a massacre. In less than a minute the entire army was cut down from either sword strikes, claw slashes, fire jutsus, or genjutsus. I've got 67 Gaki, you. The missing nin asked Naruto. 82, he said smirking. Shit, alright, I'll come with you. Just make sure Gato doesn't die too quickly. Naruto nodded and approached the terrified businessman. Hey, no need to give hasty. If you let me go I can give you anything. Money, women, men. He bargained before his head was taken clean off. I'll stick with your life. Aw man, we missed the show. A young voice said. They all turned their heads once more to see Inari and the entire townspeople wielding all types of weapons behind him. Naruto chuckled and said, Sorry Inari, we got a little carried away. You can help us with cleaning up and fetching our friends. The whole village cheered for their new hero while nobody noticed the smirking boy with the red eyes. Things have been rather peaceful these past 2 days. With Gato dead and Tazuna finishing the bridge, the country of Wave was finally prospering with life and wealth. All its inhabitants renowned Naruto as the one to help protect the old bridge builder, the one who gave them all courage to stand up for themselves, and the one who ended the stubby man known as Gato's life. They even went too far as to name the bridge the Great Naruto Bridge, much to almost everyone's surprise. Almost being the key word as the Uchiha and his faithful pet seethed at the fact they named it after that loser instead of him. Zabuza and Haku got to know most of the Leaf Shinobi as well as Tazuna's family. Hardly anyone completely trusted the two, but that was understandable. While Zabuza was still cold and antisocial, he did seem to lighten up a bit. Haku of course was still kind and friendly towards everyone, and Akai was still unconscious from the fight due to chakra exhaustion and the mental stress of the genjutsu, but he would be waking up any moment now. The same was said for Kiba, Akamaru, and Shino. Haku in her hunter nin uniform was doing her daily check-up of Akai to make sure he was stable. Akai was lying down on a mat and had some bandages on his arms and chest, but other than that, looked completely normal. She went through the basic routines and was about to exit the room when she heard groaning. The girl glanced at Akai and saw he was stirring. Haku walked over and knelt down beside him. Ni-san, she whispered. Akai managed to open his eyes a small fraction and looked at her. Ni-chan, what the hell happened? Did we win? The ice user gave an exasperated sigh. It's kind of a long story. Haku began to explain what exactly occurred after he lost consciousness. The two making a sort of ceasefire, the offer, the slaughter of Gato's men, and then the fat pig himself, as well as details about her fight. Akai was able to gather enough strength to sit up. Ni-chan, you have got to be kidding me. First off, you were willing to trust an enemy, then actually agreeing to come back where a village is so cowardly they use animals and their own comrades as human shields. Zabuza agreed because of some stupid bet. The Okatana wielder tried to stand up but winced in the process. Ni-san, calm down. I sensed no betrayal from Naruto. I see that only the Uchiha and Haruno are arrogant and stupid. Zabuza may have agreed because of a wager, but I begged him to consider it. We're all tired of being on the run, this could be our only chance, she explained. Akai sighed, if only by a little, that did make sense. Alright, I'll go along with it, but I still want to talk with that Naruto guy to see exactly why he made the offer. Haku smiled and stood up. Thanks Ni-san, my only advice right now is to stay away from the Uchiha and Haruno, or as you creatively called them Mr. Chicken and Mr. meant to type that forehead, they might demand you to hand over your weapons and train them. Naruto-kun mentioned something about them being spoiled and brainwashed. Before she left, she noticed a smirk across her surrogate brother's face. Speaking of Naruto, did you just call him kun? Haku blushed a light shade of red and stuttered out. Shish, shut up. She yelled the last part and smacked him on top of the head and stormed out. Akai rubbed his sore head and chuckled to himself. With Mr. Chicken, Sasuke was standing near a pool of water inside the clearing Team 8 used for their training. Sasuke was smugly grinning to himself, he finally got his Sharingan. Seeing those thugs slaughtered right before his eyes reminded him of the Uchiha massacre. Visions clouded his thoughts of that dreaded night, and with combination of the stress of the battle he was finally able to unlock it. He even had enough time to copy one of the jutsus Naruto to upstage the dobi and rub it in his face. He decided he would challenge him to a fight along the way back and use the jutsu to hopefully kill him and show the others their place. Though he decided to practice it first and see if there was some way to alter and improve the jutsu, further humiliating him. Sasuke activated his Sharingan and flipped through the hand seals. Water style. Water shark bomb jutsu. He called out as water began to rise up from the water. To his shock, the water took the form of some type of deformed shark before exploding and sending the brooder flying back. Sasuke got back on his feet, questioned out loud. What the hell? Why didn't it work? Because you need to practice. A voice answered from behind him. Sasuke turned around to see Naruto with a not too happy look on his face. What do you want, loser? I'm busy training. Naruto rose an eyebrow. Training in the jutsu you copied from me. Sasuke was about to answer and start a rant when Naruto rose his hand. You know what? Forget it. Every time I talk to you, you go on and on about how you're an Uchiha, the elite, the greatest clan in the world, and somehow deserves anything and everything handed to you just for being born, so I'm just going to stop you before you start. If you need help on how to actually make the jutsu work, I'll be at Tazuna's house. Thank you and hopefully have a pleasant day. He says as turns around and leaves the clearing, leaving a big surprise, pissed off Uchiha. At Tazuna's house, Naruto had just arrived at the old man's home when he saw Shino and Haku in the front, with the former having a few bandages around his arms, though they could barely be seen under his coat. Naruto smiled and waved. Hey Shino. Glad to see you're okay. This got both of their attention as they saw the blonde approach them. The two smiled. Thank you, Naruto. Shino said simply. How are Kiba and Akamaru doing? Naruto asked Haku. The two are doing fine, though Kiba is extremely angry at that Uchiha, which is understandable. I think it would be best if him and Akamaru traveled separately, the girl suggested, with Naruto nodding. Alright, I'll ask Kurenai-sensei if he can travel with us. Why are you two out here anyway? It is about time to take our leave. Akai-san, Haku-san, and Zabuza-san will be traveling with Team 8. Hinata and Kurenai-sensei are still saying their goodbyes. Shino answered. Naruto nodded and went inside. After two bear hugs from Tsunami and Tazuna, as well as a tearful goodbye with Inari, Naruto packed all of his things and left the house to see Team 8 along with Kiba and the three soon-to-be Leaf Shinobi standing with their bags packed. Is everyone all set? Kurenai asked. After a chorus of, "Hi," they all set off to Konoha. Sometime later, the group had been traveling along the dirt road for hours and the sun was beginning to set, so they decided to set up camp nearby. It was now dark outside with only a few stars out. It was Naruto's turn to take watch as everyone else was resting. He was sitting on a log and threw some timber into the fire in front of him to keep it going. He heard a few footsteps coming from the side and turned to see Akai approaching him. Yo Naruto, can I talk to you? Sure I guess. Akai nodded and took a seat next to him. Deciding to cut to the chase, he asked. Listen, there are a few things I want to ask you. Like, why did you offer for me, Ni-chan, and Zabuza to come back with you? Naruto gave a small sigh. I'm still kind of wondering that myself. I guess I saw that you and Haku did nothing wrong, and yet you still had to be on the run, always on guard because of the person you chose to follow. I can see in yours and Haku's eyes that you both have been through a ton of pain. Sorry about the genjutsu, by the way. He apologized, but Akai waved his hand dismissively. I can relate to that, and I can't stand seeing others go through that. I saw an opportunity to help you guys out and I took it. I'm very close to the Sandaime, so we could definitely work something out. The civilian council are the ones you should look out for. They are selfish, arrogant, and stupid. All they care about is more money and more power. When the Yondaime died, they took advantage of grief and hysteria to gain more leverage. While the Hokage is a good man, he is getting old and needs to step down soon. What do you mean you can relate to that? The blonde looked down at that. Do you know what a Jinchuriki is? He asked as he heard Akai growl. Unfortunately, the Mizukage was one. He answered, but his facial expressions turned to that of shock when he understood what he meant. You're a Jinchuriki? The teen nodded. Yep, of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. He attacked the village and the Yondaime sacrificed his life, sealing it away into me. To help me with fitting in with the younger generation, the Sandaime passed a law forbidding anyone to talk about. Of course, he couldn't always keep an eye on me or the others, so nobody really followed it. I say I can relate to that because most of the village see me as the demon himself and do their best to make sure I die or at least have a miserable life. They told their kids to stay away and hate me, they ignore and glare at me, they don't allow me in their stores, and when I was younger they used to gather large mobs and beat me to near death. Akai was in horror at what they did. Why in Kami's name do you remain loyal to a bunch of monsters? He asked, genuinely curious. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. I'm just loyal to the ones that give a damn about me. The only reason I stick around is because if I leave then I'll be marked as a missing nin and hunted down like a wild animal, and I can't do that to the ones I care about. My old reason for becoming a ninja was to become Hokage, but seeing as the village will never accept me no matter what I do, I have a new reason. This may seem far-fetched, but I want to grow stronger to become the cage of my own village. I'm not the first person to have been persecuted inside the village, and I sure as hell won't be the last, so I'm dreaming of creating a village where there is no prejudice, no hate. The village will not be centered on gaining more money or power. It will be focused on one thing: growing strong enough to protect their precious people. If it means going through a few more years of their shit, then so be it. Akai stared at the teen in front of him in awe. Wow, that's one hell of a dream. When did you start wanting to do that? A few days ago. Naruto answered nonchalantly. This of course made Akai face vault. He eventually recovered and stood up. Okay. I guess I'm satisfied with the answers, he said as he pulled out a large scroll. Hey listen, a few years back I found this in the woods when I was traveling with another group. I think they called themselves the Sound 4, I think. There was a lot of blood around, so it looked like a battle took place. Back then I wasn't too noble, so I took it for myself. It has an Uzumaki and a bunch of namakazes on them, so it's a summoning contract, but I'm not really into that, so if you want it, it's yours. He said as he handed him the scroll and left. Naruto looked back at the scroll and opened it. His eyes widened when he saw what it was. It was the tiger summoning contract. Kasumi told him back when his parents were still alive someone broke into the estate and tried to take as many scroll as they could and escape. Thankfully, he made enough commotion to wake them up. Before he could escape, his father caught him and managed to get all the scrolls he took. The man was screwed, he was caught trespassing and could easily be executed if they wished. Getting desperate, he took out a kunai and threw it at Kushina, wounding her in the neck. Minato, of course, ran to her side to if she was okay, giving the thief enough time to escape and steal the closet scroll he could get to, which happened to be the summoning contract. Kushina made a full recovery and no one saw the man after that. His parents didn't pursue the matter. Still, who the man was and how did it end up so far away from Konoha was always the question. Shaking his head of the thoughts, Naruto realized his shift was almost over and rose from his seat. He waited for Hinata to show up before he went into his own tent and drifted off to sleep. Talk about a crazy week. Team 8, along with Kiba, finally reached the gates of their home village. They verified their ID to the guards and Sunshine to the Hokage Tower. They gave him a full report on what happened, including Sasuke's stunt at the bridge, which infuriated the aged Kage to no end. He assured them all there would be a council meeting later on today which they needed to attend. Naruto also noted that since Sasuke was part of a clan and a shinobi, the civilian council was not needed. The two adults saw the smug look on his face and tried their best from giving one themselves. The civilians made up about 60% of the council. Konoha law stated that any matter not exclusively shinobi related would require a vote from the civilian and clan heads. This law was thanks to the civilian council pushing for more civilian-friendly laws after the Kyuubi attacked. Too busy grieving over the loss of his wife, Sarutobi approved. He still had most of the power over the village though, so he didn't see it as much of a threat. Of course the civilians abused this advantage for years with increases in taxes and removing any dangerous lessons at the academy such as tree walking. Naruto constantly reminded Hiruzen that this was a dictatorship but the council had so many laws and loopholes, he was just too old to go through all the hurdles. If he immediately disregarded the rules then the council might start pushing for a more fair and level-headed young Hokage who would obey the laws. If that didn't work they could always scare the civilians into becoming more hostile and could possibly start a civil war, well more like brutal slaughter but it would still make Konoha look bad in terms of keeping peace. He really needed to find a successor. But that would be addressed at a later date, and Sasuke would no doubt be given a hell of a lot more than a slap on the wrist, like he would usually get from his past offenses when he was in the academy. The old man put Zabuza on a 1-month parole before being instated as a ninja, but Haku and Akai were instantly giving the rank of Chunin, seeing as they were not registered in the bingo book and posed no threat. Naruto immediately gave the two full protection under his clan and offered living arrangements in his home. Albeit reluctantly, Sarutobi approved and dismissed them all. Once the five exited he made preparations for the council meeting. Later that day, Namikaze Estate. The living arrangements had been set with the three new Konoha residents at the estate. Haku and Akai would be in separate rooms next to each other while Zabuza would have his room across the hall. Naruto's room was of course still down the hall from all of this. The three were all introduced to Kasumi who also kept the fact who she was a secret. So naturally Zabuza and Akai eyed her every now and again and Haku surprisingly glared daggers at her when no one was looking. They were all seated in the living room with the three teens all on the couch and Zabuza and Kasumi in separate chairs. It was mere small talk aside from the former missing nin offering to teach Naruto Kenjutsu but he respectfully declined and stuck with his claws. Eventually, the time for the council meeting rolled around and everyone except for Kasumi Sunshine to the chambers. Council chambers. The four-leaf nin reappeared just outside the chambers. They entered and, much to their glee, saw the seats for the civilian side were all empty. Naruto turned his head to the right and saw Team 7 and the rest of his team standing off to the side. He gestured to them and most of them nodded to acknowledge his presence. The other three took a good look around the room. It was a fairly well-lit room and there were 2 rows, one for the clan head side and one for the civilian side. At the back of the room was a large desk, obviously meant for the Hokage. One by one the heads of their respected clans filled each of their empty chairs until Hiruzen finally sat down at the desk. He cleared his throat and spoke. I have called this meeting to discuss the punishment of Sasuke Uchiha's acts towards the Inuzuka clan heir. as well as Sakura Haruno's inability to fulfill her duties as a kunoichi. Will Sasuke Uchiha please step forward? The boy did as he was told for once but had a look of impatience and annoyance. Sasuke Uchiha, there has been several eyewitness accounts of putting your own comrades in harm's way, nearly costing Kiba Inuzuka and his Ninkin Akamaru their lives. How do you plead? Sarutobi questioned with a hint of threat in his voice. Sasuke just snorted and said, "Yeah, I used the stupid mutt to protect me, what of it? He should be honored that someone like me used him." But was taken aback at the levels of ki, mostly emitted by the aged man in front of him and the Inuzuka clan head, Sume, who happened to be Kiba's mother. With narrowed eyes Sarutobi said, "I see, well, seeing as we have a confession, I propose this. Sasuke Uchiha, you are hereby stripped of your rank and must resume the 4 years of the academy again. Once you graduate, you will be forbidden to take the Chunin exams for 5 years in Konoha and 10 years in any other country. The Inuzuka clan will also take reparations directly from your bank accounts as well as your jutsu library. I think 80% is fair." All in favor. Every clan head member raised their hand with smug satisfaction. All oppose. Silence. Very well. Anbu escort the Uchiha to his home to prepare for his generous donation. The civilians won't be able to save you this time. Two Anbu appeared and took the Uchiha away, still in complete shock. While all this was going on, Sakura's anger was growing with each passing second. How dare they do this to her, Sasuke-kun? She was about to snap at the Hokage of all people. Kakashi saw this and instinctively knocked her unconscious with a well-placed chop to the neck. He wouldn't be a sensei for quite some time, and he was definitely not going to request Sasuke. He learned his lesson from Kurenai. Flashback. Night before leaving Wave Country. Kakashi was in his room, lying down on a mat reading his prized possession, Ika Ika, Paradise. He heard a knock on the door and gave the person permission to come in. The door opened to reveal Kurenai. The man instinctively closed his book and tossed it over to a corner. She quickly stepped inside before closing and locking the door behind her. "Kakashi, we need to talk," she ordered with no room for argument. Kakashi looked a bit confused. "I thought you were with Asuma." The Genjutsu mistress realized what he was implying and blushed. "No, you pervert. I mean, why are you letting Sakura and Sasuke get away with their behavior?" she growled. The one-eyed Jonin gave a brief sigh and sat up. "I had a feeling you would ask that. I'm guessing you're not going to leave until you get an answer, am I correct?" The Yuhi nodded. Kakashi sighed once more. Might as well do it the easy way instead of the hard way. The civilian council said that if and when Sasuke and Sakura misbehave, I should look away. If I do, they can convince Hokage-sama to give my father a decent burial ceremony and get his name on the memorial stone. As well as hiring a blacksmith from Iron Country to repair his tanto. The last conscious thing he saw was Kurenai's foot headed straight for his face. Flashback end. When he regained consciousness, Kurenai gave him an earful on how stupid the decision was. And when looking back at, she was right. He was, without doubt, disgracing Obito's memory and most likely disgracing his father's by effectively ruining lives and shinobi careers. He hadn't realized the extent of his selfish decision, nor did he ever think about the consequences. He didn't even remember why he agreed. He supposed as soon as they mentioned his father they had him. He was always letting personal emotions get in the way of his better judgment. Not anymore, besides it's not like they could do anything about. They were civilians. Kakashi was so wrapped up in his self-loathing he was missing the rest of Sarutobi's announcements. "Before I dismiss everyone, there is one more thing I would like to get this out of the way," the Hokage stated before grabbing a scroll from his desk. He unraveled it and read it aloud with barely contained malice. "This is a proposal by the Civilian Council to force Akai Kendo and Zabuza Momoichi to train Sasuke Uchiha in every style and jutsu they know. Haku Momoichi will also be wedded to said Uchiha within 3 months and will have to produce a heir within 1 year. The three newly instated Leaf Nin were doing their best to hold back their levels of Ki and were failing miserably. All in favor. Silence. All oppose. All the clan heads couldn't raise their hands faster. Hiruzen, Zabuza, and the two teens calmed down considerably after that. The old fire shadow nodded and stamped the document with a big red denied stamp. That is all, everyone is dismissed, though I would like for Naruto to stay for just a while longer. Everybody nodded and left the chambers via either Shunshin or just using the door. Naruto approached the desk and asked, "What is it, Oji-san?" "Naruto, I was wondering if you would like for me to announce your heritage toward the Konoha populace." The blonde immediately shook his head. "I'd rather that be kept a secret for now. Two-san did make quite a few enemies and I'm unsure if the Tsuchikage is a very forgiving person." Hiruzen nodded. "I was just curious since you are offering protection for Zabuza-san, Akai-san, and Haku-san under your clan name." Naruto shrugged. "The only people who would be curious enough to know what clan is offering protection would be the civilian council. Just tell them they are under a clan and leave it at that. They have no right to question any further." The older man nodded once more and dismissed him. Naruto was about to leave but remembered something. "Oh, and if isn't too much trouble, I would like for Akai to have a DNA test." Sarutobi raised an eyebrow. "With whom?" "When I was fighting him he had an exceptionally high affinity for water and I see a bit of resemblance with him and Tobirama. The chances that he is related to the Nadaime is very slim but I need to make sure." "You honestly think Akai-san is a Senju?" "Like I said, it's just a hunch but I think we should do it just to be safe." The Hokage was silent for a minute. He did see a bit of his old sensei in the boy, but just his spiky hair. Still, a test wouldn't cause too much harm. "We do have a sample of Tsunade's blood before she left. I'll send an Anbu to your estate to summon him." Naruto smiled. "Thanks Oji-san." He thanked before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. Later that night, Hyuga Estate. Hinata was currently lying in her bed and staring at the ceiling. She couldn't sleep. The one person on her mind was Haku. The mere thought of another girl living closer to her Naruto-kun made her feel uneasy. However, she wasn't stupid. Naruto showed no signs of interest in anyone but her and even told her they were friends and nothing more. Besides, Naruto wasn't like someone to be with more than one person. Not to mention the fact that Kasumi would probably cause more harm to him than her whole team combined if he saw the girl behind her back. But nevertheless, it was still difficult not to feel a bit insecure. Haku was a very beautiful girl. Long hair and flawless skin, she felt a bit of heat in between her legs as she continued fantasizing about her. A nice set of legs and her perfect pair of. Hinata did something she hasn't done in years and blushed. She wasn't attracted to her, was she? Well, she was obviously attracted to Naruto. The dreams and fantasies she had, G through X rated, were proof of that. But Haku, the Hyuga heiress decided not to press the subject any further and closed her eyes, feeling a bit uncomfortable.